bum, 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 bum. The Peter Shit Show. Bum, 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 bum. All right, condolences again to what happened 24 years ago today. Uh, I still distinctly remember the last flight I took before 9/11, before we had to take off our shoes and all that other fun stuff. My cousin was studying in Vancouver, BC. He's from Taiwan. We took a flight into Seattle and drove the rest of the way. Now, in Seattle, we had a little bit of a funny situation. I used to be a sodaholic. I drank at least 3 liters of soda every day. We had gone to a fast food restaurant, and I had refilled my soda at least 5, 6 times. My mom was kind of embarrassed because people were staring at me. And my mom said that this is a Pittsburgh kind of behavior. Don't take it when we travel, something to that effect. And we drove the rest of the way. I distinctly remember, I don't know why I remember this, but at another rest stop, my dad and I had gone into the bathroom, and space is at a premium in Canada. And so when we went into the bathroom and opened the stall door, the door hit the door of the bathroom. The door of the main door of the bathroom hit the door of the stall, and it made a really loud noise. I don't know why I even remember that. You know, it's funny because every time I've always disliked flying. Maybe I didn't have a fear of it, but it's always the flight home that always trips me up. The flight to where I'm going, usually, I guess I'm looking forward to the trip and all that. Even to this day, flights home are a lot trickier than flights out for some reason. It could be a symptom of just the end of the vacation kind of depression, right? And it really brings out fear of flying in me. Every time I've had fears, it's always on the way home that I run into the most trouble. 9/11 happened not long after we arrived home. And the next year, I actually did fly to Taiwan. We had to visit some family members. We had some family matters to deal with. At the time, 3 of my grandparents were alive. My grandfather on my mother's side passed away when I was only 8 years old. But at the time, the other 3 were still alive. And I had a miserable time in Taiwan. 9/11 was fresh, only a few months earlier. And the week after we landed in Taiwan, there was a plane crash in Taiwan. What had happened was, and you can Google China Airlines flight something, 600 something, I can't remember the exact number. What had happened was the aircraft involved in that flight had been damaged years ago and improperly repaired, and over the course of thousands of flight cycles, metal fatigue had set in and it exploded in midair. And so I had already endured a flight thinking about 9/11, and then we sat down. I still remember where in my grandmother's apartment. She still owns that apartment. We sat down and we were watching the news about China Airlines. And keep in mind, we didn't realize it was metal fatigue at the time. There was the potential it was more terrorism. And so I swore I would, and the flight home was even trickier. And so I swore I was never going to fly again. My mom says, you got to fly at least 3 more times, implying that I have to go to all of my grandparents' funerals. And I said, no, I'm not going to go there. And that really upset my mom. And then at the time, I was learning how to drive. And I told my parents, you know what? Maybe one day we'll have a bridge over the Bering Strait. I could drive all the way to China and then take a boat to Taiwan. My dad says, are you crazy? That's going to be even more dangerous. You might not even survive one trip to Taiwan that way. In retrospect, he was right. I have since driven the equivalent of that distance maybe a few dozen times, and I've gotten into quite a number of car accidents. I've also flown that distance and never had any issues, right? I guess I have gotten into disagreements with people on airplanes sometimes, but even that is very minor. Usually it's just somebody who is upset that I have to tell them that I have food allergies to be mindful of their food. And that's about the only extent of flight of problems that I have, right? Sometimes a flight gets delayed, but even that's usually a fun story. So my dad says, "You're not even going to survive one trip that way." And then I came up with another idea. Maybe one of these days, flights will be so much faster, you'll get to Taiwan before you even know it, 15, 20 minutes. My dad said, "You know what? That is possible." And we left the conversation like that. Unfortunately, the following year, 2003, Space Shuttle Columbia crashed, and which was how I wanted to fly to Taiwan. So now I really got a big fear. After that, I didn't fly for many years. I really missed out, unfortunately. Now that I'm all grown up, I don't have the luxury of being able to take that much time away. I really missed out. And I worked in a skyscraper in New York for 9 months for Bloomberg. Bloomberg is located in a 40-story skyscraper. I had a colleague who kept a parachute under his desk, and he told me that just in case anything happens to the building, doesn't even have to be a plane hitting a fire that blocks all of the exits and all that. He had a friend whose uncle worked in the North Tower, roughly in the 35th floor when it happened, and his uncle was so traumatized by it that even to this day, or at least at the time, even to this day, every time he closes his eyes, all he can see is having to run down flight after flight of steps. Apparently he's not very fit, and he's never really walked steps like that. And to this day, or at least when he was talking about it 10 years ago, he closes his eyes and all he can see is floor after floor after floor after floor. He didn't see the buildings collapsing afterward because he wanted to get out of there, and he didn't even look back. It wasn't until he got to another place where he was hiding out that he heard the buildings, and he didn't even see it. He just heard news that the buildings had collapsed. And my colleague happens to love skydiving, so he just keeps one of his parachutes there, as if it's even easy to do it from. We were on like the 25th floor, right? So I guess we all had our fears afterwards. This is the Peter Dislike Show. Oh, it's Peter Shit Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Shit Show. Bum 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 bum.